Hi folks, Tormach 1500 MX. I wanted to do a video talking about what this machine represents, kind of the build philosophy behind it. Wanted to talk about why we bought it and some of the workflows that we've already started to use over the past few months as we've been making parts on it. Wanted to show off some of the parts and workflows we've been doing, and finally wrap up, talk a little bit about a comparison. I think some of the obvious questions are, how does this compare to other machines like the Sile X7? And one of the most common things we hear is, why should I buy this over a Haas? Or really, when we say Haas, I think it's a pretty fair comparison for any vertical machining center, whether that's new or used. So from a pure specs standpoint, I'll put a link description to this PDF tear sheet, 19.7 by 13.8 by 14 inch XYZ travel. Having the additional Y compared to say the old 1100 is great, but really what is absolutely crazy different about this machine is this frame. Bonded epoxy granite base and column casting. This machine is epoxy granite, maybe also referred to as mineral casting. There might be some slight technical nuances between them, but suffice it to say, this machine is a complete paradigm shift, forgive the cliched phrase, but it really is, from what Tormach has done in the past. It's a poured epoxy granite casting. Actually, fun fact, that's made here in Ohio, which is another sort of theme of this machine, is Tormach has moved away from the Far East. This machine is made partly here in, you'd have to look up what the legal definition of made is, but it's certainly North America. Parts of it are made in the US, parts of it I believe are made in Mexico, but still pretty cool that they're doing that. I care more about though, is it a good machine and is it a good value? So super stiff, the dampening properties of that material are excellent. It's also linear rails, which is a really nice departure from scraped dovetailed gibways for a modern machine center, and that means it's fast. I think the XY rapids or actually cutting feeds are 1200 inches per minute, and ZX's is 600. So for all practical purposes, especially for how we want to use this machine, it's got all the performance there we need. 4 horsepower, 10,000 RPM BT30 spindle, and we have the 16 tool ATC. There are a bunch of accessories that are also new to the Tormach class of machine that they've done here. They've got mist collector options through spindle coolant. There's a washdown hose right here. There's washdown system built into the rails here. I'll walk around back and show off. This is the coolant tank. I think they have an auger coming out, but we will just stick with this, I think. And there's a 4th axis, which we don't have. We do have the table probe and spindle probe. We're not leaving the spindle probe in the machine, we're just hand loading it. But for all practical purposes, this is similar or identical to a Renishaw style probe, which is absolutely great. Frankly, as a guy who started using Tormachs in 2010, it's a little bit strange to use a wireless probe that works this well. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end of the video in the comparison, but there's no need to buy high-speed machining, rigid tapping, some of those other types of options. They all just come with it, along with Path Pilot and the touchscreen and the control here. So why did we buy this machine? It's actually kind of a fun story. We had a meeting at the beginning of the year, and the team here said, hey, we'd really like an R&D machine that's not a Haas. Haas in air quotes again, because we're a shop filled with Haas machines. We've got a bunch of them, we love them, but when we get a Haas machine, it ends up getting dedicated to production. We wanted a machine that we could have for R&D, for fixture creation, that is kind of always free. And what that means is it's got to be the right machine, it's got to be capable. We didn't want a machine that was mediocre, basically we wanted a good machine. And we really cared a lot about how it would be set up from a cutting tool standpoint as well as a work holding standpoint. So the thing we've started to do is we've used our fiber laser, and we started to laser engrave all of the tools, so T9 here, T12 here. We've obviously replicated those in a Fusion library. We also duplicate that in a Google Sheets file. Now there's a trade-off, because duplicating the data both in a Google Sheet and a Fusion library has its risks, but we've learned here, we do the same thing with our VF2 right here and some other machines, the horizontal, because it means you can track more information. And there's some other quirky things about Fusion libraries that I don't like, and so we actually sort of treat the Google Sheet as the master. If that's a workflow that works great for you, awesome. If not, to each their own. What we also do is we have a separate Fusion file called 1500 MX Master Tools, and when we're programming a new part, we always grab the part or the tools from there. We're also hoping to use this machine more with the toolpath software for automated cam, but we're not quite there yet. Some of that's on us, some of that's on some improvements that I think and hope are coming to Toolpath. We have the wall control. I think this is an option, which is nice for storage of stuff. We've started to improve some things like, for example, a little 3D printed. This is the DDD wall control stuff. You can find it on the Maker World or similar 3D printing site. Actually, I think that might be a GitHub repository as well. Started 3D printing little tools to hold things like, for example, this is our tool to pick out our fixture plate plugs, and this is a Torx for our puck chuck. So we have a puck chuck system on the left here, and then a mod vise on the right. The idea here is generally speaking, this workflow can stay on here. This was a vacuum, or excuse me, not a vacuum, this was a super glue base, so it's a 12x8 pallet that we have decked. We can take it on and off, and then we can just use the tape super glue method. We did that to make 4 new fixtures that we will then put onto a larger fixture that'll go on the Haas machine. But perfect example, now this is just aluminum, so nothing complicated or challenging here, but it was nice to have this workflow here ready to go with both the work holding, the tooling. I could program it offline, run it, etc. The more impressive thing, which I'll show here in a minute, is some of the A2 tool steel work we've been doing. We want to also try hard milling, and I wanted an air blast, so I started to rig up a lock line with just an air valve, hand controlled for now, to see if that will help. You generally do hard milling dry, but you do want to help evacuate the chips and blow them away from the area. So we'll do a video in the future. We have not actually tried the hard milling yet, although frankly, I'm not particularly worried about it, given what I've already seen on how rigid and accurate and just well built this machine is. One of the really innovative things Tormach did that I think is awesome is right up in there is a camera, and it is always recording, or has the option to always be recording what you're doing. So if something happens, you can actually go into PathPilot and kind of rewatch what just transpired. Sometimes that's only going to be something you use on a bad day, but still, I think that's a great example of just common things that more people in this industry should be doing. So I tip of the hat to Tormach for that sort of an innovation. Oh, by the way, we'll do the unveiling right now. There we go. It's kind of fun. I love how PathPilot handles the tooling and the ATC. The machine will allow us to have up to 1,000 tools. I don't foresee ever having that many, but I do suspect we may have well over 50 or 75 that we just leave set up. It's the best thing to do if you can afford to leave all those drills, all those taps, all those end mills set up. The beauty about how PathPilot handles it is you can leave the description and the tool offset data in here, and then you can load what tools you want in and out of the ATC. And if you're running a program that has a tool in the ATC, it will automatically grab it. And if there's a tool that it needs that's not in the ATC, PathPilot in the program will simply wait for you, and you can hand load that tool. I absolutely love that workflow, especially for how we want to use this machine, because it gives you the confidence to just know, hey, I've already got a 3/32 ball end mill. It may not be in the ATC, I don't care. It's right here on the tool rack. It's labeled, I know what it is. I know the height's there. I know the stick out is good when I run my Fusion programming to check that. That's a great workflow. The other thing that's really nice, I think, and I wish other builders did this, is in offsets, work offsets, you can actually add descriptions to your coordinate systems. If you're gonna save offsets, save fixtures, you can describe what they are, or even put like the date information in there so you can know if it's a stale offset. Super helpful. Even better, shameless plug here for Saunders Machine Works, if you're running a fixture plate where you can use colored plugs to mark repeat jobs, or even the 0-point system, this is our puck chuck, to have repeat jobs, you can tie that information into the coordinate system. I would also encourage you to put that in Fusion, so there's kind of a parity there, remind yourself, but really nice. In terms of tooling, nothing crazy here, except we actually are using some RegoFix stuff. To be totally fair, we would not have gotten Rego just for this machine, but we ended up getting Rego set up for our Williman, which really benefits from it because it has a very strange minimal gauge length. And the RegoFix, if you're not familiar, these tools are incredibly accurate. They basically don't have run out. It works via a press system. There's also a manual press if you don't want to invest in this style. And then the collets themselves have a very slight taper to them, and it's effectively being press fit into the holder. You've got really good work holding, and you've got even better minimal TIR. Really the only downside is they are not inexpensive at all. But since we already had that system, for a couple of the things that we wanted to do for the hard milling, where we want really light engagement and a really minimal TIR, really stable system. We wanted to try those out. And we also bought some of their super stubbies. These are ER20s, where you use a special wrench, this guy right here, and you can really minimize the stick out of the tool, which can help with rigidity. So parts we made, like I said, we made these aluminum fixtures. They turned out great, but you know, the old saying, everybody can be a hero in aluminum. I think what really helps this machine shine is showing off. One of the first parts that we made was a prototype for a 6-inch smooth insert for our mod vise system. These will be made over there on our Okuma horizontal, but we wanted to prototype the new fixturing idea and just prove out that workflow. And this is the perfect machine to try that on. And this is these actually are made out of round bar. So you can see here, we actually 3D printed a fixture and use the existing steel strap clamps that we make to hold it in place. This was the first time, again, we used the wireless probe the part in, and the finishes speak for themselves. That's what I enjoy about making this sort of a video, is just, I don't have to embellish it. I can just show you guys absolutely, like, I could not have told you that this did not come off a Haas or an Okuma. Now, it's a 4 horsepower machine. It's not gonna have the same removal rates, etc. But still, when I wanted something that's accurate and has a good cut quality, and also is gonna be a really consistent performing machine, I think this machine is gonna work the same in 6 months as it does today. And I think if you buy one for your shop or lab, it's gonna be the same performance as this one. There wasn't always that same level of consistency, in my opinion, on a scraped machine, or where they may need gib adjustments, etc. Next part we made are, these are A2. Now they're soft A2, so it's 20 some Rockwell, not particularly hard. I mean, it's a relatively free machining material, although I will say it can eat up tools, but they went great. Now, yes, slightly longer cycle time to do some of the roughing, but the finishes here are super happy. Obviously, it doesn't come through on video, but despite this having some, you can see the surface finish stuff, but it feels absolutely silky smooth. And the drilling went really well. That was something I was kind of curious to see how it would handle a 10mm drill. And it rigid tapped these 1/4 holes, just absolutely no problem. We made 4 of these. First one I babysat it. The next 3, the 2 are right there, and there's 2 more right here. The next 3, I just set it, left the tools in the tool changer, and came back when they were done. And we haven't hard milled it yet, but this is a 60 Rockwell hardened A2 fixture that we are going to do some hard mill testing on to see how that works. Because a lot of times what we like to do is rough machine something, heat treat it, and then we will hard mill the final critical surfaces in place. And I would much rather do that on this machine versus doing it on a production machine, where it takes up time and there's some risk that you goof on something. So comparison time. This machine, I think, directly competes with the Style X7. There was a Reddit post I found that I think does a really good job at sort of independently and very methodically comparing the two. I'll link to that as well. What I will stand by is Tormach has been around. It's got US-based support. You can call somebody, you can get repair parts. They've got very well vetted things like post-processors, probing routines, et cetera, et cetera. You can argue about the specs between the two machines, but I can honestly tell you we're very happy with how this machine is performing. In terms of comparing it to a vertical machining center, this is going to have a smaller footprint, going to be easier to move around, it's going to be easier to unload, it's single phase, which is a big thing, and then again for the height and the size of the machine, I would have absolutely been delighted to put this machine in my garage back when we were running our shop in a basement. I would not have been able to fit, I mean, I probably could have fit some version of a VMC, but it's always that question of would I have had to rip out my garage door header or something of the sorts. So I think for those examples, it fits really well, but also it kind of goes back to why we bought the machine. We love Haas's. We have a shop full of Haas's. We have bought many of them. I will buy more of them. We didn't want a Haas here. I didn't want a high 5-figure or 6-figure machine. Didn't need the power. I didn't want the risk. One of the things I hear a lot, and folks will disagree, and that's totally fine, to each their own again, but one of the things I hear is people say, oh man, for X dollars, sometimes the number's 40,000, sometimes it's 60,000, whatever, I'd rather buy a Haas. Well, before I was researching this video, I went ahead and spec'd out a VF1. These are not apples to apples. A VF1 has a bigger umbrella, it's got more horsepower. It's not perfectly apples to apples, but by the time you add in high-speed machining, rigid tapping, the freight, reasonable options, even through spindle coolant ready, The VF1 was, I think it was $85,000. So my only pushback would be sometimes people sort of say, hey, oh man, I'd rather just go buy a Haas for 50 grand. Again, we love Haas machines, but there isn't a $50,000 Haas. Now there's used machines. That's a whole another can of worms. If you find, you know, a great used VMC, rock and roll, more power to you. But this machine, again, brand new, has a warranty. I can call Tormach for support. With our Haas machines, again, we're fortunate that we haven't had to have that many service calls, but many times calling an HFO and leading to a tech coming out is a $1,000 plus event, whereas Tormach has really pushed being kind of right to repair. They have phone service. They'll sell you just about any part you want, all the way up to, I think, a spindle. Don't quote me on that. I assume you can replace a spindle on this machine if you had to yourself, but it's a totally different proposition there. They're not Haas's. This is not a robo-drill. It's not a Speedio, but it's a darn good machine. Let me know in the comments below what else you guys want to see. We're happy to show more about how we're using this machine in terms of how it's helping our production, the workflows, the improvements. But like I said, so far, super happy with it. I know there's not a ton of content out there on these just yet, so wanted to make sure to get one out as well. Check out Audacity Micro, his channel. He's got one. He's put out some content as well. Otherwise, folks, as always, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. Take care. See you soon.